Number 10. Deadpool. Deadpool has gone through phases where he was fully cured of his power set and even pretty once more in the comics, like back during Daniel Way's Deadpool run, looking completely normal but without his healing factor. But the most startling shift when it comes to Deadpool's appearance has to be between his on-screen adaptations. That's right, we're talking about the comparison between Deadpool's cinematic debut in the X-Men Origins Wolverine film and his own self-titled film franchise. Although oddly enough, both roles feature him played by Ryan Reynolds. The two adaptations could not be more different. Thankfully in Deadpool 2, Wade manages to fix Cable's temporal dial. Using this device to time travel, Wade is not only able to save Vanessa, who initially died at the beginning of that film, but is also able to clean up the timelines by killing the previous version of himself, who is also known as Weapon 11. It should also be noted that in X-Men Origins Wolverine, Deadpool appeared fully as a villain, as opposed to the lovable mess of an anti-hero we've come to know him as within his own film franchise. Number 9. Raquel. I never know how to say this name, but I'm pretty sure it's like Raquel. How do you say Skrull names? That's the question. For some reason, probably because she had been gone so long, Raquel, aka the Skrull Empress, aka Emperor Doric VIII / Hulkling / Teddy Altman's grandmother, was completely unrecognized when she returned. Raquel was revealed to be alive and well, and also sleuthing it up as she impersonated T'Nolth the Pursuer, an elite member of the Kree forces. And apparently Raquel had been impersonating T'Nolth so long she had in essence created her persona and basically was her. Raquel had actually been plotting and planning in secret, putting in place all the pieces to bring together the Kree and Skrull Empire, uniting them in an alliance in order to ensure her grandson was the one to rule over the now allied empire, as we saw in Empire. That's the name of the event, so not to be redundant. It was an empire, but it's spelled empire with a Y because it's a whole other thing. And yet when she was revealed in that event to be the one revealed as the Skrull pretending to be T'Nolth, many Marvel fans actually needed to crack open their comic history books and review just who exactly she was, with many people mistaking her for Veranke, the Skrull Queen. But yes, this is Raquel. She was believed to have died when the Skrull homeworld perished along with her daughter Princess Enel, as their world was devoured by Galactus. She made her first appearance in the Fantastic Four original series in issue 206 and was believed to have perished in issue 257. But she didn't, she was still alive, and then she came back years later and everyone went, who is that? What? Veranke? What? Not Veranke, two different people. Number 8. KRAVEN the Hunter. You might think you recognize KRAVEN, but do you really? After all, the current KRAVEN that you've seen turning up in the current Beyond storyline of the Amazing Spider-Man series is actually none other than KRAVEN's last son. Well, his last clone son, anyway. This clone of KRAVEN was given the name of Last Son after he hunted down all his other brothers, his other clone brothers, who had also been trained by Sergei Kravinoff, the KRAVEN himself. As such, this clone of KRAVEN was named his true heir, and since then has also taken up the mantle of KRAVEN the Hunter. So while he may look like KRAVEN, albeit a younger version of him, this KRAVEN the Hunter is not actually the original. So I guess this is a character that you would recognize, but in so doing you'd be wrong, which means I guess you didn't really recognize him then, did you? This version of KRAVEN made his first appearance in the current run of The Amazing Spider-Man, which started in 2018, first appearing back in issue 16 as the Last Son. Number 7. XEMNU. XEMNU made his first appearance in Journey into Mystery in issue number 62. We learned that XEMNU was actually a prisoner and a criminal who was retrieved and accidentally revived by a human and electrician named Joe Harper. XEMNU would go on to become known as XEMNU the Living Hulk, and would also prove to be a powerful cosmic, psionic, and all-around bizarre enemy to the Hulk and the Hulk family in time. Initially, he clashed with the original superhero powerhouse team known as the Defenders. XEMNU in his first appearance has brownish or reddish fur, but currently has reappeared in the comics with white fur, making him look kind of like a space yeti. You may not recognize him because you forgot him, or because he's just so weird, or it could be just because of this change when it comes to, you know, his overall fur color. But yeah, he's got different, I guess he dyed his fur? I don't know. What happened there? Number 6. Norman Osborn. Well, you might currently recognize Norman Osborn in terms of his appearance. When it comes to his actions and his alignment, You might not. And in modern comics, Norman has also gone through a couple dramatic redesigns and makeovers in recent history. At one point, Norman gets plastic surgery to completely change his facial appearance, reinventing himself as Mason Banks and becoming the head of Alchemax. There's even an unmasked point where we were all kind of like, wait, who's that? And then he's like, I changed my face, but it's me, Norman Osborn, aka also Mason Banks. He also has been the head of Hammer and his own Dark Avengers, and for a time posed as their version of Iron Man, tarnishing the mantle of Iron Patriot, and more recently, a depowered Norman bonded with the Carnage symbiote, allowing himself to use the Goblin Serum once more, but ultimately being driven insane by that whole experience and believing himself to actually be prime Carnage host and serial killer Cletus Cassidy. Now sane again, however, and seemingly purified by the Sin Eater, currently in the comics, Norman is on a path of redemption, having gained a new lease on life and being cured of his usual villainous intentions. Or so it would seem. I never trust Norman, but that's what's up currently. Number 5. Galactus. One villain who recently got a very mummy-inspired looking makeover was Galactus during his time in Thor's latest series as written by Donny Cates. Here in the first arc of the 2020 Thor series, referred to as Volume 6 overall of Thor, Thor takes on the immensely powerful cosmic entity known as the Black Winter. Because the Black Winter is so powerful, Thor is forced to team up with Galactus to defeat it. Unfortunately, he also learns that Galactus is actually kind of a herald for the Black Winter. FYI, that is just how powerful of a force the Black Winter is. He has Galactus as a herald. After devouring 5 planets to bolster his own power, Galactus has this power stripped from him by Thor upon this revelation. Thor leaves Galactus drained of the power cosmic, wrinkled, and de-armored, even taking Galactus's helmet as a trophy, using it as the entrance to his throne room. So while you might have recognized him previously, Galactus then got super upgraded and now is very mummified and also very dead. Oof. Number 4. Onslaught. Onslaught initially was a villain with a mysterious background. Despite the fact the powerful villain looked a ton like Magneto and seemed to pack a psionic powerhouse of abilities that echoed an evil Professor X, the character's true identity as really both of those mutants wouldn't be confirmed till after his initial appearance. When Onslaught appeared again, it was in a similar vein, and while the symbol of Onslaught might be similar, this time around when it came to the character's identity, they were even less recognizable, as it was explained that basically all the mutants of Krakoa were, in a way, Onslaught, and that Onslaught was able to exist through their constant resurrections. So while you might recognize the look of Onslaught when they returned, their true identity was even more of a mystery than the first time around, and their final form that we saw during X-Men The Onslaught Revelation was pretty wild as well, getting a bit of an update to match even the current character designs of what an amalgamated Charles and Eric would look like currently. I like that that version of Onslaught has like the black suit now, the tight black suit that Charles wears. It's a look. Number 3. One Below All. I think one of the biggest revelations of modern comics was learning that even a being as good as the One Above All, who is basically considered to be like Marvel God, has a dark side. The One Below All ended up being a major villain in the Immortal Hulk series, and we later learned that their power actually came from one of the most divine and good beings in the Marvel universe, the One Above All. The One Below All is like the Hulk for the One Above All. In other words, their darker and much more destructive other half. So while you might know the One Above All and you might know the One Below All, I bet you'd be surprised to learn that they were actually directly connected to one another. They can't exist without the other, especially given how different in appearance and alignment they both are. But this revelation was also super powerful and fitting for a series that was really all about forgiving and reconciling the darker side of the Hulk, the Hulks, and ultimately of humanity and our own individual selves. After all, we all have like a little bit of a Hulk side to us. Number 2. Killmonger. If you go on far enough back, Eric Killmonger easily becomes one of Marvel's villains you would not soon recognize. And that goes both ways. Whether we're talking about more recent fans looking back in comic history to his first appearance in Jungle Action, volume number 2, or whether we're talking about his initial fans looking at his modern MCU adaptation and comic redesign, which obviously takes inspiration from the MCU version of Eric. Killmonger made his first appearance in the second volume of Jungle Action from the 1970s in issue number 6, and even from that front cover, he just looks like really different. Here, Eric does not sport any self-created bodily scars marking his kills, but instead comes with a lot of spiky accessories, including what appears to be a spike belt, which he uses as a weapon to fight against his foe and his rival, Black Panther. All the spikes. Now he's got scars, but back then he had spikes. Number 1. The Leader. I doubt after all this time if the leader even really recognizes himself, considering what he looks like now. Following the events of Immortal Hulk, the leader is left no longer a supervillain, but just a guy. Throughout the course of the series, we saw the leader only grow more evil and more powerful, it seemed. He was eventually basically influenced or possessed by the one below all, the most powerful of all Hulk-related baddies, and possibly the baddest of the bad just in general. However, after the two beings were separated from one another, Stearns was left as just a man, returned to normal. The Hulk decided to forgive the leader, and he returned back to the Earth with all the other Hulks and Bruce Banner. It's been a long time, but Sam Stearns is no longer the leader, at least not currently in the comics. I mean, he could return to being the leader at some point. Instead, Samuel Stearns is just Samuel Stearns.
In at 10, Damien Darhk. Okay, so while not actually destroying the world, if Damien Darhk from Arrow Season 4 didn't have to be defeated for the plot, he would have very well accomplished his goal. The goal being to get all of his loved ones and some savvy investors into a climate-controlled bubble underneath Star City and live there while the world recovers from him launching every single nuke in the world at once using the Rubicon program from Argus. He had obtained the program and launched all the nukes, however Team Arrow, and more specifically Felicity and Curtis, were able to shut down most of them. The deaths from all over the world would have also given Damien immense power, basically making him immortal. His philosophy was that humanity cannot be saved and that the world in fact required a reset in order to save it. And honestly, I think he's probably right. The world is in desperate need of saving, and I'm all for wiping out the entire human race. I'm okay, I swear. And at 9, Nekron. The Blackest Night storyline is probably one of my favorite DC Comics events, with a whole slew of heroes being, for lack of a better term, resurrected using the powers of the Black Lantern rings. Nekron is DC's embodiment of death in a sense, at least if you're not a speedster, and he wanted to eliminate all life in the universe, because like I said, that's what all great villains want, right? Like, what's the point of wiping out the universe? Like, what are you gonna do then? Do all villains just want to die? Like, at least Damien Darhk had a plan on how to keep himself and his family alive. Why would someone want to destroy everything and everyone, including themselves, or leave like nowhere for them to actually rule over? It just makes no sense to me. Like, if there are no living people and they're all just Black Lanterns under your control, would you really feel like you're in charge? I mean, would you really be having fun? Part of the fun of being the villain is having people to kill or control or subject or whatever you want to do, right? It doesn't make sense to me. Either way, Nekron got pretty damn close to seizing control of the universe since, you know, he raised heroes like Superman from the grave. If the White Lanterns didn't exist, he would have won. Let's be honest. And it ain't Annihilus. Annihilus is an interdimensional insectoid conqueror and tyrant hailing from the Negative Zone, a pocket dimension located on Earth 616. When Annihilus discovered the opposing force, the Negative Zone's counterpart, the Power Cosmic, after years of long failed conquests, he finally had the power to fulfill his dreams. With an entity named Ravenous, who at the time wielded this power, he invaded the positive matter universe through a portal known as the Crunch. Many worlds and many heroes fell before his Annihilation Wave. The Annihilation Wave was Annihilus's interdimensional invading force. It was an incredibly powerful force which laid waste to galaxies, slaughtered numerous worlds, and captured or killed cosmic beings. So yeah. And Annihilus came close to accomplishing his goal as well, even taking several Galactus heads, just heads of multiple versions of Galactus. However, he was ultimately unsuccessful, but he came even closer to winning and destroying reality in the What If Annihilation story, which I hope we get to see a version of in the Disney Plus series since it takes place shortly after Civil War. And it's 7, Reverse Flash. Reverse Flash in the season premiere of The Flash Season 3 may not have like obliterated the world, but he did end up destroying the world that we knew for the CW verse, and ended up changing the timeline so much that it even affected characters in other shows. In the Season 2 finale, Barry decides to go back in time to save his mother, similar to the Flashpoint storyline. However, this time, Wally is the Flash, and Barry isn't. However, he starts losing his speed and his memory of an old life, which he thinks is a bad thing. Like, bro, I would give anything to forget my trauma, are you joking? Sorry for me not understanding understanding why you don't want to remember your parents dying, but okay. So he lets reverse Flash go so that he can set the timeline back. However, unlike in the animated movie, Barry doesn't get stopped in the time stream. Instead, he waits until it's all played out and then boom, kills her after he was originally supposed to, creating a whole new timeline, somehow. Where Joe and Iris don't talk, Cisco's brother is dead, and John Diggle has a son named John Diggle Jr. instead of his daughter Sarah, who he had named after Sarah Lance when she died in Arrow Season 3. So he destroyed the Arrowverse timeline we knew, and that's why he's only at number 7. It's very rare for someone to actually destroy the world, because, you know, what else would there be? And in 6, Aquaman and Wonder Woman. Oh, look at that! I managed to squeeze 2 Flashpoint numbers into this list, hell yeah. In the animated movie The Flashpoint Paradox in the DC animated universe, the world is so much different to its CW counterpart. Mostly due to the war between Aquaman and Wonder Woman, who ended up being the villains of this movie, thanks to them being former lovers while Aquaman was married to Mira, who Wonder Woman then killed when Mira tried to get revenge. But to be fair, she also wears Mira's crown, so it's not really like, oh, it was self-defense. However, this war resulted in the destruction of the planet at the literal moment Barry was able to get enough speed to go back into Speed Force. It was a suspenseful moment where Reverse Flash had just been killed by Batman, so Barry could have enough speed to run back and stop himself from saving his mother. I mean, he managed to get into the Speed Force before the world's destruction caught up with him, but the world was still destroyed, so it's good enough for me. Halfway through and in number 5, the Night King. Oh, what's that? A non-comic villain? Hell yeah it is. The Night King is in essence the big bad evil guy of Game of Thrones. Sure, there's the Game of Thrones that they're playing like chess combined with Risk, but come on, the Night King was the whole first half of the final season. The Night King was the master of the first White Walkers, having existed since the age of the first men. He was also the supreme leader of the Army of the Dead. Because, you know, love that. The Night King was the first man who was captured by a tribe of children of the forest. Leaf, who was amongst the group, pressed a dragon glass dagger into his chest, causing his eyes to turn blue and turning him into the first of the White Walkers. However, the White Walkers soon turn on their creators and become the ruthless rulers of the land beyond the wall. Nobody believes that they exist, and those who see them rarely live to tell the tale. However, come season 8, spoiler alert for the rest of this number now, the worst of all seasons, the Night King finally makes his play on Westeros, and honestly, he should have absolutely won. If George R.R. Martin had really been writing these final scripts, the Night King would have won, and honestly I think that's probably the way that the books are gonna go when/if the final one's completed, because you know, it's George, he's gonna have the bad guy win. In the show, he gets killed by Arya Stark, which should absolutely not have happened, but hey, girl power. I still wanted to see him win though. He should have won. He would have won. And at 4, Thanos. While he may have only wiped out half the universe, Thanos is certainly a guy who destroyed the world. It's not in a literal sense, but wiping out half the population does kinda destroy the world in a more figurative sense. We see it even after 5 years later in the MCU. The world still misses half the population. Everyone lost someone, and that's the drive that causes the heroes to fight back and bring everyone back even after 5 years. I mean, the Avengers literally risked their lives traveling through the quantum realm and time in order to save everyone. Save the billions of people that Thanos destroyed, and honestly, that's why he's on this list. He destroyed the planet by destroying half of life. Sure, he was partially right and the Earth was starting to heal itself, but the people weren't, and I don't think that little bit of good that is coming from that really matters when everyone has lost someone they love. It's pretty damn insane. And not only that, but the world is also destroyed when everyone gets brought back. And while yes, the Avengers are the ones who did the whole resurrection thing, it's Thanos who made it required, who made everyone miserable, and even 5 years later, people still can't get through a date without crying. So, yeah, it's Thanos' fault. And at 3, Surtur. Surtur's purpose was to destroy the world, or I guess technically destroy Asgard, which is a world. Surtur was a significant figure in the prophecy of Ragnarok, as the one who would initiate the fall of Asgard. Seeking to prevent this prophecy though, Odin defeated Surtur thousands of years ago, like 500,000, taking the source of his power, the eternal flame, back to Asgard, and confining Surtur to his own realm, where he remained for over 5,000 years. After Odin went missing following the second Dark Elf conflict though, a weakened Surtur intended to finally start Ragnarok, only to be defeated and killed by Thor. Despite this, Thor realized that Ragnarok had to happen to stop Hela, so Loki resurrected him with the eternal flame and used him to defeat Hela and destroying Asgard. The fire demon obviously fulfilled his prophecy and destroyed Asgard along with Hela and himself in the process. At least this is realistic. At least Surtur knows that he's gonna die when he destroys the world. So I mean, like, he did actually destroy a world. Like, he destroyed one of the realms, so he fulfilled the prophecy. So hell yeah, I'm including him on this list. I love a man who's willing to go down with his cause. Penultimately, in at number 2, ABRAXAS. ABRAXAS is in essence the embodiment of destruction in the Marvel Universe. This guy wanted to destroy the multiverse and everyone in it just for funsies. When the Galactus of the Prime Reality died, ABRAXAS soon began to just cut through various alternate realities. He also killed off other versions of the Galactus because, you know, he could. ABRAXAS used the head of one of these Galactuses. Galactus? Galacti? I actually think Galacti sounds better, because Galactus sounds like cactus. Anyway, he used this head to home in on the main continuity's Earth and to plant a mole in the form of an alternate universe version of Harold Nova, who was dead in their reality. On Earth though, ABRAXAS attacked the Watcher and stole half of his signature medallion. ABRAXAS then taunted the Fantastic Four with the inevitability of his arrival, enticing them to search for the ultimate nullifier, which he was actually looking for. The clues to the location of which were scattered among realities. The Fantastic Four actually did find the ultimate nullifier, and then ABRAXAS showed up and stole it from them, because that's what he wanted all along. Using this nullifier, ABRAXAS was going to wipe out reality, and honestly, if it worked for plot and basically the godchild that is Franklin Richards, he would have gotten away with it too, if it weren't for you meddling kids and your damn sister. Finally, in at number 1, the Anti-Monitor. The Anti-Monitor is probably the most successful villain on this list, and maybe ever when it comes to destroying the world. The Anti-Monitor ended up destroying all worlds pretty much. The purpose of the Crisis on Infinite Earths event that the Anti-Monitor was created for was to get rid of the DC multiverse in the comics, and squeeze everyone down to one world. And the purpose remained largely the same for the CW crossover of the same name, even if it was also to kill off Oliver Queen. But the Anti-Monitor, while not successful in his goal of replacing that universe with the Antimatter universe, did destroy basically infinite Earths. Like, if we think about it, there are infinite Earths in that multiverse, meaning that the Anti-Monitor somehow destroyed infinity, which is frickin' nuts. In the CW crossover, he literally destroyed every single Earth, including Earth 1. So this guy, or alien, or whatever they are, ended up actually destroying infinity. Like, what does that even mean? Can we even quantify that? It should be impossible. Technically, there also should be Earths that the Anti-Monitor can't touch, because if there's one Earth that the antimatter wave hits, technically, going off the many worlds theory, there should be another Earth where the antimatter wave doesn't touch it. So forget the Flashpoint paradox, try the Anti-Monitor paradox. There you go.
Number 10, Goblin Queen. I know, I'm actually hurting my own dark heart by putting the great Goblin Queen Madeline Pryor so low on this list, but there are a lot of powerful mutants out there. I'm sorry, Maddie. Madeline Pryor is the mutant clone of Jean Grey, who was created by Mr. Sinister, using a little piece of the Phoenix Force. I don't know how you even get that, but this is Mr. Sinister, so I guess there's nothing he can't get his hands on. He's all about collecting genetic material and I guess bits of fantastical things with which he can manufacture powerful mutants. Granted, for him, Maddie was meant to be simply a means to an end, helping him to get the genetic offspring of Madelyns and Scotts, aka Cyclops, whom Maddie did end up marrying. It turned out, however, that Sinister had bitten off more than he could chew with Maddie. Once she learned the truth of her origin, she went kind of insane, and her mutant powers began to manifest. Some don't believe Maddie to be as powerful as Jean, which is why she's ranked lower here, but technically, I believe that she would be at the same level, or at least close to Jean, making her also an Omega level mutant. Maddie also has the added power set of magic, which she has dabbled in before, and through said dabbling gained the title of Goblin Queen. Also, I gotta be honest, I'm mostly putting her at 10 because I know you all like the Goblin Queen with me. So she's a good intro point, even though, yeah, I agree, I think she should be higher up. I think I've put her close to number 1 before on one of these things, so just not her day. She already had her day in the spotlight. Number 9, Vulcan. I know some people might be disappointed that Vulcan is ranked so low on this list, but truly, it's really only because we have such powerhouses ahead of us, like I said. No powerhouse though. Sorry, Franklin. Apparently you don't get to be a mutant anymore. At least not for now. No more Krakoan weekend retreats for you. But anyways, back to Vulcan. Vulcan's power set is all about energy manipulation. Despite being the youngest Summer's brother, he also happens to be the most powerful. Where Cyclops is a good guy and Havoc is often a confused guy, Vulcan is often an evil guy, though he hasn't always been evil. It does seem that there is something villainous deeply embedded within him though that just comes out. It is unknown if there are even limits when it comes to how much energy Vulcan can manipulate, harness, and or absorb. Number 8. Exodus. Exodus is Bennett du Paris. Initially living in the 12th century, he ended up becoming an ally to Apocalypse, who also manipulated Exodus, making him likely more powerful than he would have ever been without said tampering. Exodus is considered to be immortal, and can also heal and resurrect others, and heal and regenerate parts of himself. He is also an immensely powerful psionic mutant. He can feed off the life force energy of others, is a powerful empath, telepath, and telekinetic. Not only that, but he is insanely durable, basically being impossible to kill or destroy, and can teleport. While we don't talk much about him, Bennett is pretty powerful and scary, hence why he has a seat on the Quiet Council of Krakoa. Here in that seat. Number 7. Legion. Legion is really powerful overall as a mutant, especially considering his power sets are pretty much endless. He is considered Omega level due to his power manifestation abilities for this reason. Legion is David Haller, the son of Professor Charles Xavier and Gabrielle Haller. David is often depicted as living with a severe dissociative identity disorder, having over 100 personalities residing within him, each with their own power set. Because of this, Legion is often considered a big wild card when it comes to his alignment. He is very chaotic, but more often has been considered a villain as opposed to a hero. Although right now, I would say he's more on the hero side, but of course, most mutants seem to be these days because Krakoa is a thing, so everyone gets to be a hero. Yay! Still, there are villains lurking in the shadows. Number 6. Tarn the Uncaring. Tarn is one of the Iraqi mutants who is kind of like the Arakko version of Mr. Sinister, except that Tarn is an Omega level mutant who also has magic based powers as well. Tarn's powers are mainly psionic in nature, granting him the ability to read minds while also causing pain to his target. Actually hurts when he reads your mind. Tarn is also a very strong telekinetic. Like Mr. Sinister, he is obsessed with evolution and genes, and is capable of altering the genetic makeup of other mutants. In fact, I think he does this with like magic. And I think it's actually part of his power set too, so it's not just a passion. The Locust Vile are what Tarn calls his loyal servants. These are Iraqi mutants that Tarn basically experimented on. While most don't survive his experimentation process, the ones who do have become loyal to him and basically see Tarn as their god. Tarn also has the ability to teleport, so yeah, he's just scary OP. He's just a person that I'm like, wow, I love that this is the Hellions, like one of their villains. And they're a mess, but it's like, here, take Tarn. He's crazy. He's crazy powerful. Good luck. Number 5. Magneto. Magneto is an extremely powerful mutant. He is known as the master of magnetism, and his power set allows him to control and manipulate anything that might be considered magnetic fields, and anything metal based usually. Guns are useless against him. He can disassemble them or crumple them with a mere thought, and can use his powers even to move giant mounds of rock by grabbing hold of the metals within them. He has used his powers in tandem with his daughter Polaris before to move an entire island, and he also used his powers to give Mars a jumpstart when the mutants were terraforming it in the Planet-Size X-Men issue from 2021. We see Magneto here grabbing all the iron needed for the project and bringing it to Mars, and using his powers to upstart the molten core, compressing it and bringing it to the required temperature. Number 4. Genesis. Genesis isn't exactly a villain just yet, but she was an antagonist during the Ten of Swords event, so based on what we've seen, I think we can kind of count her as one. Also, basically most of the Iraqi mutants can be considered more on the villainous side of things. They initially opposed Krakoa and also generally are a lot more deadly and violent in nature. They are a nation who is kind of all about war, or at least has been for centuries. Genesis herself was the ruler of Okara, ruling alongside her husband Apocalypse back when he was there with her, before he left and before Okara basically split into two separate islands, Krakoa and Arakko. Genesis remained on Arakko while Apocalypse headed to Earth, hoping to rally a new mutant society to bring back Arakko, which would help fight against the invading Amenthi demons. Genesis ended up becoming the new Annihilation, the leader of the Amenthi army, joining the demons with her own people, the Iraqi. Apocalypse fought against his wife in the Ten of Swords event and defeated her, freeing her from the possession of the Golden Helm of Annihilation. Genesis's mutant powers allow her to manipulate and control plant life. She is also an extremely strong and skilled fighter, and like Apocalypse and her sister Iska, has an extremely prolonged lifespan. Number 3. Apocalypse. Apocalypse is still one of the most powerful mutants out there. His Omega level power is that of evolution, meaning there is pretty much nothing that Apocalypse can't adapt to survive through. Over time he gets more and more powerful as well, so the longer he lives, the more unstoppable in theory he will become. Apocalypse has proven just how much of a threat he can be, and all I'll say is I'm glad he's currently on the side of Krakoa, as he makes as powerful an ally as he does a powerful villain. Apocalypse not only has his mutant power set, but is also very experienced in magics as well. Fun fact. Also, Apocalypse may have never formally been acknowledged as an Omega level mutant, but I feel like we gotta count him because he totally seems Omega level, right? He's also come up against other Omega levels and bested them, so that's gotta count for something. Seriously, I couldn't find anything saying that he was Omega level, and I was like, how has this never come up before? How have we never classified Apocalypse as Omega? So whoever is watching this, if you're writing some X-Men comics right now, please do that. Jonathan Hickman, well, your time is coming to an end, but if you're still involved, please help us out. Pass it on to the X folks. Number 2, Iska the Unbeaten. Iska is another mutant from Arakko. So many of them are so powerful, Iska included. Iska's mutant power makes her pretty much undefeatable. She can never lose. That's her mutant power, yep. However, that also seems to mean if she is on the losing side of a battle, she is forced to flip sides, whether or not she truly wants to. Iska, I think, has one of the coolest mutant powers we've seen in a while. It's so creative, yet so simple and brilliant. Like other mutants who were meeting Iska for the first time, I was also obsessed with the idea of her power set. Iska being unable to lose means in theory she could beat almost anyone, or I suppose would have to refuse or evade fighting them somehow were she to potentially lose. Which is also an interesting element to her power set that I'd love to see explored more in the comics. In the Ten of Swords tournament, the first battle was between Betsy Braddock, aka Captain Britain, and Iska, and Betsy was quickly defeated. That is how powerful Iska is. Poor Betsy, strong as she might be, didn't seem to stand a chance. And I love how going into that battle she was like, I don't know how this is gonna go. Probably not great for me. Number 1, Monarch. I feel like we are always sleeping on Jamie Braddock somewhat on these lists and on this channel, so I thought it only appropriate that we make sure he's higher up this time around because he is really cool. Especially as Franklin Richards is no longer currently classified as a mutant in the comics. Franklin, aka Powerhouse, was considered to be one of the most powerful mutants around and was also known for his reality warping powers. Though both these characters have the ability to reality warp, each power set is basically based in a different type of reality warping. Like there's a different basis to it, if that makes sense. Monarch's powers work on a quantum level, and although there are people who can influence Monarch's powers by manipulating his mind, as we saw Jean do in Planet-Size X-Men, he also is pretty powerful as someone who can just make things happen and think things into existence basically, as we also saw in Planet-Size X-Men. When he was like, oh, you need a thing? Boom, done.